Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners, to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast, energized by Celsius, the official energy drink of pewterreport.com. It is a Thursday edition of the show. Creamsicle Week continues on as we spend today's show talking about how will the Bucs attack the Atlanta Falcons. It's going to be a different looking style of offense based on the personnel and the overall players available in this game. So we're going to get a different looking Bucs offense. Doesn't mean that they can't score points, but when you don't have Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, you certainly have to get creative. So we're going to talk about a little bit on how the Bucs will go about scoring points against the Falcons and go inside the mind of Liam Cohen, who we spoke to today, getting his thoughts about his big-time matchup. So I'm your host, Matt Matera. Joined with me on today's show is my fellow colleague from pewterreport.com, Adam Slavon. Adam, we were both at the Advent Health Training Center today. How's it going, dude?
Matt, it's going great. Happy to be on with you. And just want to say, compared to last week, things have sure changed for the Buccaneers. Since I was last on the show with you, obviously without Mike, without Chris now, how is the offense going to look? In terms of the remaining wide receivers, you have Sterling Shepard, Jalen McMillan. Liam Cohen today, he had plenty of interesting things to say just about how all the remaining pieces are going to go together. So really excited to break it down with you, and then also maybe touch base on the defense too.
Yeah, for sure. We'll get into a little bit of everything. Of course, we will answer questions, address super chats as well if you super chat us. So keeping it an open forum for everybody. And Adam, one thing I wanted to start with, and you and I were there the last 2 days. You were at the stadium for the last game on Monday when the injuries happened, and specifically Chris Godwin. And you could even tell watching on the TV or as I'm doing the Peter game day stream, the air seemed like it was taken out of the room. Everything was super somber based on the situation. But looking at Wednesday and today, it feels like, and this is just my opinion, so feel free to answer however you like, but it seems like the Bucs have officially kind of wipe the slate clean. They acknowledge, they know there's no Mike, there's no Chris, but I don't think anybody's dwelling on it anymore. It's just kind of like, that sucks, but we got to move on. How have you seen it over the past couple of days?
Yeah, so kind of noting that difference, that's a great point. Kind of Monday night after the game, you could tell, like listening to Baker Mayfield during his press conference, hearing the players in the locker room, the tone of everything was very somber. Like guys were just like, man, we lost Mike, we lost Chris, the two biggest pieces of the offense. Where do we go from here? And you kind of look at the difference between then and today. You have a guy like Tristan Wirfs, a team captain, like he was looking forward to like seeing all the different pieces kind of come together with the run game. And you kind of heard that again from Liam Cohen. Baker Mayfield yesterday touched on it. They've kind of processed the really brutal injuries that they've definitely thrown a curveball into the season. But like you said, I think guys are moving on. They're understanding that, hey, this is a reality that we're faced with. It's not the reality that they want, but they have to keep playing the games. They can't forfeit. They can't just hand the ball in and say, we're not going to go out there and play. They still have to go out there. They still have to execute. And they're still an above 500 team. So there's still that optimism, I think, in the building that they can get through this.
Right. Like if they are able to win on Sunday, and the cool thing about football is that there's so many different ways they can be victorious. I mean, there's a game, the Falcons, who they're playing on Sunday. There was a game earlier this year where the Falcons didn't score an offensive touchdown and won the game. There's a game the Falcons lost. It was the first game of the season against the Steelers where the Steelers, all they did was kick field goals, and yet they defeated the Atlanta Falcons. So I know the defense has been abysmal, and we'll talk about the abysmalness of the defense. I don't know if that's a word, but whatever. We'll talk about how bad that defense was later on in the show. But who's to say the Bucs can't win a low-scoring game? Who's to say that they can't, I don't want to say win in a shootout, but at least kind of go stride for stride with the Atlanta Falcons? So the reinforcements are going to have to come in. obviously Liam Cohen needs to be absolutely in his bag and call a great game. And talking to him today, I think he's taking a real pragmatic approach about things. He's very logical, and he was quite realistic about you're not going to replace Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, but we're also not going to ask the receivers to do these crazy things. I believe one of his statements was just, we're not going to go and say, hey, be fast, because that doesn't
Yeah.
totally work. But I think the biggest thing that we'll talk about first, and then maybe get into the receivers really, Adam, is the running backs. And I think the running backs kind of unlock the key of what I am calling the Bucs season 2.0
Mm.
because this is a completely different outlook on this team now. But with a revamped running game, with running backs that can help in the passing game, and that have won them a game based on how they defeated the New Orleans Saints,
Yeah.
that may be the answer to being successful on Sunday.
Yeah, definitely. I think when you look at how the Bucs should attack the Falcons, it really has to start with that run game and the fact that there's three really quality running backs in the room, and those guys can help mitigate some of the offensive production that was lost. I mean, when you look on paper, they had 259 total yards between the three of them when they played the Ravens on Monday night. So they're able to affect the game. They're able to be productive in different ways and provide different elements. So Liam Cohen, when he was talking today, he mentioned expect wrinkles, but also different
Yeah.
personnel groupings, and I think that extends to the running backs. You, myself, and Greg Alman of Fox Sports, we were kind of talking after practice on they're not going to run pony package 50 times a game, but what they can
Sadly.
do, yeah, sadly, because they're so productive doing it. But if they do it 10
Yeah.
times a game, and maybe on the first offensive drive, they do it a couple of times to keep the Falcons off balance. I think the running backs, the fact that it's a top 10 rushing offense in the league, like it's very surprising, but they can continue that production going forward because they've kind of established that foundation with the running back rotation.
Yeah, they absolutely have. And it was really that first game in Atlanta that the Bucs kind of turned the corner when it came
Yeah.
to running the football for whatever that reason may be. If Bucky Irving doesn't fumble at the end, the Bucs just kind of run out that clock and the game's over. And yeah, they still should have been able to win the game, but that's another conversation for another day. Then you look at what they did against Atlanta, and then still running for over 100 yards against a Ravens defense that is the best in the league at stopping the run. And also that game was getting out of hand too, and they had to stop running it based
Yeah.
on the score, but they were having success up until that point. It's a huge credit to the offensive line. I mean, getting Luke Gedeke back, I think we all thought initially, like, oh my God, like Baker's going to be safe now. We don't have to worry about the edge rushers. But I think Gedeke's biggest impact upon his return has really been helping the run game. We spoke to Cody Mauch today as well, and something that you asked one of the coaches about too with Cody Mauch and his progression over the last 3 or 4 weeks. So the offensive line is gelling at the right time. Now, what Cohen was saying, as you mentioned as well, with not being able to run the pony package 55 times, as great as it would be to have them every single time, part of the pony package, part of the brilliance of it is that it gives a different look. It's a separate wrinkle that the defense knows is going to come at some point in the game, but you don't always know when it's going to be pinpointed, when they're going to, press the button to get to the pony package. If you use it 55 times, it can't be your base offense because eventually you're going to figure it out and you're going to have the right personnel. And it's almost like, in a sense, it's almost like the Wildcat to a degree.
Yeah.
It's not the Wildcat. The quarterback's still getting the football. But in the sense of the Wildcat burst onto the scene and nobody could stop it. The Dolphins are doing all these incredible things. But then you got more tape on it and you figured, okay, well, when the running back snaps the ball, he can only do like one of 3 or 4 things, and then you can account for that. In a pony package, which with a regular offense, you can do 1,000 different things because Baker can throw the ball, you can hand it off. We've seen end arounds, we've seen fake end arounds to deep balls to Chris Godwin. Eventually, in 4 quarters of a game, a team will realize, okay, well, this is what's going to come when the running back goes this way. So That's why the pony package has to be limited to a degree. I still wouldn't be surprised if they used it more than they have in the past couple of games, and they still use it a fair amount. Now, the other thing we need to address when it comes to the running backs and the usage of it is there's been a lot of conversation about Rashad White and,
Yeah.
hey, let's just make him a wide receiver, or maybe just make him a wide receiver for this game. On paper and in Madden, it's cool. It's a fun
Yeah.
idea.
A little
But
position change in Madden.
right, yeah. But the problem is the routes that they are asking Rashad White to run are either coming out of the backfield or it's a limited number of things he's going to run when he's lined up out wide. He does not have the same route running skill set, even of Sterling Shepard and Jalen
No.
McMillan and Trey Palmer. So that's why he can't play that the whole time. It would have to be an emergency situation.
Yeah, you're not expecting Rashad White to run the 10-yard out route like Chris Godwin or create that separation on like a slant route. With Rashad White, a lot of his bread and butter is it's a screen pass, maybe it's a wheel route, or just a little design play, like 5 yards, because he does a lot of his damage from the line of scrimmage, able to create that space, and once he gets going, he's a full head of steam. So Rashad White, he has the hands to be a slot receiver, but he doesn't have that advanced skill set and like in practice sessions, he's not running that route tree. So I think when
Yeah.
you look at that, I think that kind of extends or goes back to the pony package, and that you have Rashad White and Sean Tucker like out there, and that provides two different elements. Baker can either hand it off to Sean Tucker or pass it to Rashad White. But you mentioned the offensive line, and that's something I kind of want to go back to. So you mentioned Luke Gedeke and the impact that he's had uh, in creating running lanes, but also Cody Mauch. And I think the offensive
Yeah.
line in general, Matt, I don't know if you would agree with this. They probably played their best game Monday night against the Ravens. That was a bright spot for the offense, was that offensive line. Baker did get sacked 3 times, but that was more or less just him running into defensive linemen than the offensive linemen just giving up plays. So I think when you have that offensive line fully in sync and leaps and bounds better than this point last year, you have a tight end, Cade Otton, coming off his first 100-yard game, the 3 running backs. There still is a lot that Baker can do. And I know Liam Cohen mentioned today for Baker just getting back to the fundamentals and trying to take care of the football. He can't throw 3 interceptions, but what he can do is kind of manage the game more or less now that he doesn't have Mike and Chris to throw to.
The offensive line has developed so much, and it's been a great thing. I would say their best game was against New Orleans, just because in that fourth quarter, the Saints knew what was coming.
Yeah.
And they just couldn't be stopped. Like everybody in the stadium, everybody at home, no matter where you were, you knew the Bucs were going to run the football. And run the football they did over and over and over, to the point that the Saints just gave up at the end of that game. So I would put that number 1, but I do agree. I have it too. But that was a great performance by the offensive line against the Baltimore Ravens. And we have to remember there were some questions going into it, like Graham Barton's back, but Robert Hainsey played so well, and Graham Barton held the zone too. So that was really important moving forward. Cade Otton, I'm so curious how he's going to look in this game, because he balled out last game. 100 yards, 8 catches, took a bunch of brutal hits in that game. But I do wonder how many of those moments were just because it was later in the game, Ravens are playing off a little bit, and he's a solid guy. People are arguing he's not even as good as Cam Brate, which is okay. That's not the it's not the end of the world by any means. But he's just never going to be that yards after the catch guy. He's never going to be that like crazy down the field guy. Now, one thing I love that the Bucs have done with Cade Otton is this little screenplay, where they get him the ball right at the line of scrimmage, because everybody expects a screen to the running back, but to the tight end, we don't see as much, and they've been able to use that pretty well.
Yeah, and you mentioned like Cade Otton, you don't know what to expect from him. I mean, going into this season, he was maybe the 4th, 5th option in the offense, and now he's probably the 2nd or 3rd. So I mean, that uptick, he's going to get more targets in the offense one way or another. And what Liam Cohen mentioned today about Otten was being tough as nails and just like a really
Yeah.
smart guy who knows how to get into the right spot. He's not going to be the guy that burns you and runs a seam route down the middle of the field. But what he can be is, let's say it's a 3rd and 6. He's a kind of guy that can move the chains and get 7 yards, you know? So I think Otten, he's going to get probably 7, 8 targets, and he's going to be able to have more production just as a byproduct.
And I think for this game, the Bucs don't need that deep shot or that big play down the field, especially when the Falcons have some pretty good defensive backs like Jesse Bates and others. The Falcons like to play a lot of cover 2, which takes away that deep shot. But that's kind of perfect for the Bucs in this game specifically because yes, Trey Palmer can go deep and so can Jalen McMillan. But if it's a jump ball, I don't necessarily know if you trust Trey Palmer and McMillan in that situation the way that you would with Mike Evans. So
Yeah.
I almost want the Bucs offense to pick apart the Falcons defense the way that the Falcons and the Ravens, for the most part, have picked apart the Bucs defense of beating you over the middle, short to intermediate shots down the field, nothing over the top crazy. I know Lamar Jackson had the one big deep ball down the field, but that was more of him buying time. Remember, Chris Braswell came off the side. He completely avoided him and chucked it deep. But I think that's going to be the way to go for a couple of reasons. One of them being as well with Baker Mayfield just not having Baker do too much and understanding he can rely on the other people that are playing in this game. And I think it's so important, and Cohen talked about it a little bit, of just playing to the strengths of Trey Palmer and Sterling Shepard, because you can't just rely all on the running backs. You can't just rely on Cade Otton to, all of a sudden turn into Gronk and be this amazing player. Sterling Shepard's going to have to step up. Same thing with Trey Palmer and Jalen McMillan. The good news is all of these guys have caught touchdown passes from Baker Mayfield this season. Sterling Shepard also has a 2-point conversion. He actually got that on Monday Night Football. But on the flip side of that, out of those 3 receivers we were just talking about, Sterling Shepard leads those 3 with 93 yards. None of them have played more than 5 games in a season. So it kind of all factors in. And you have to remember, when the offense is based around that guy right there, Mike Evans, and of course, Chris Godwin as well, they're not going to get all of their opportunities. The big thing for Shepard, too, that Cohen spoke about, and yes, there's a great connection between him and Baker Mayfield, the teammates, Oklahoma, blah, 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 blah. We know all of that. But Liam Cohen identified something really interesting about Shepard's been winning his one-on-one matchups, even if he's not getting the ball or if he's not the first read. And I think that might be more important than anything else.
Yeah, definitely. And when you look at Shepard, I think of the 3 receivers, him, McMillan, and Trey Palmer, his ability to separate and really create space. I mean, he's a veteran. He's been in plenty of different offenses, but he still looks really sharp. And I think what kind of held him back in New York were the injuries, but he definitely still has a step. And when you kind of look at it, Matt, would you say he's the wide receiver 1 and then McMillan and Palmer kind of fall in line? Do you rely on the veteran in these tough stretch of games, or do you go with the young guys?
Yeah, I was wondering that as well. That's a good question. And, Liam Cohen's not going to say who's going to be the number 1. I think it's going to be Shepard based on the experience, based on that he's been the number 1 guy before, back with the Giants. So he kind of understands what entails with that responsibility, because there's a little bit more when you're asked to be the number 1. I think he showed in that game against the Eagles he can play a majority of the snaps and not slow down or anything by any means.
Yeah.
I think it would be great to have him as the number 1, and you can kind of move him around too. You can line him up outside, you can line him up inside, whatever. I think McMillan should primarily be that slot guy. And remember, at Washington, at least his last season, and he played in his Washington career, he played a little bit of everywhere, but last season he primarily played in the slot. And that was a big question going into training camp of, can Jalen McMillan play outside? And he quickly squashed any questions or any notions about that He wouldn't be able to because he looks so good in training camp. But why not go back to the basics with him and play that slot role? He's not going to replace Chris Godwin, but maybe you use some of the strengths and some of the features that he can do that maybe a 29-year-old Chris Godwin can't. So, and then Trey Palmer, I think, can just be your traditional outside guy, go deep if you need to, and run some other routes. I actually like the job that he did once he came into the game after Mike Evans was injured. Made a nice play on a first down, I believe early in the third quarter, like when Mike was officially done for the game. And you know what? Trey Palmer ended up playing the most snaps at wide receiver after Chris Godwin. But out of those three that we've been talking about on the show, he played the most snaps. So that shows the trust that they have. And for him to be the de facto replacement of Mike Evans, again, he's not replacing who Mike Evans is, but playing in that same position. I'm pretty high on Trey Palmer. He's always been a guy that is just looking for a chance, looking for an opportunity. He's had bright spots in his career, and he's about to have the brightest one so far in 2 seasons.
Yeah, definitely. And we do have a super chat here from Joshua Finland. What do you think about giving Devin Culp more wide receiver routes, given his 6'4" size? Joshua, thank you for the super chat. Matt, what are your thoughts on that?
I wouldn't mind him lining up a couple of plays to the outside, kind of like when Rachaad White or Bucky will line up to the outside. But I think it's a big time ask to a guy that made his NFL debut last week, played literally one snap, and now all of a sudden he's going to play a different position. I understand the notion of it. What I would like to see, and I know we just talked about the screens to Cade Otton, I'd like to see a screen to Devin Culp. I think that would be really interesting to see. Pate Durham, we're not sure if he's going to play just yet. The injury report actually just came out a couple of minutes ago, so we will address that. But I would be fine with doing a little more 12 personnel with Devin Culp and getting him into some matchups where he can get some passes from Baker Mayfield. And since you're going to be running the ball more regardless, because you have the 3 running backs that we've been talking about, I know they can run it out of 11 and they do it a lot, but I wouldn't hate a little more 12 with Devin Culp if they trust him enough to be a blocker. But I wouldn't line him up out at wide receiver. We also have another super chat. Thanks to Aiden for this $4.99 super chat. Bit of a different topic, but that's totally fine. If you super chat us, of course, we will answer it and get to it. Aiden says, if we were to trade for anyone, I would like Jerry Jeudy and Devin Bush. Adam, your thoughts on that?
I'm not a fan of Jerry Jeudy. And I remember there was a clip of like Steve Smith and like Jerry Jeudy kind of like getting into it. But Jerry Jeudy, his production just hasn't matched like all the hype that he had coming out of college. Devin Bush would be more, I'd be curious. I know he was like a top 10 pick, I think, back in the day by the Steelers. But that linebacker position, I think the Bucs should, like on that topic, really look at addressing the inside linebacker position because KJ Britt, he is not a full-time player. He should not be getting 70 snaps a game. Like early in the season, when him and Servassier were splitting 40-40, like you can kind of understand it. Like play KJ on rundowns, Servassier in coverage. But it's clear that they need a different answer and a different player there.
Well, when it comes to energy drinks, the answer is always going to be Celsius, which is, of course, is the official energy drink of PewterReport.com. Tons of great flavors like the sparkling watermelon lemonade and the sparkling kiwi strawberry. I love the Arctic vibe as well. It's my personal favorite. So if you need to know where to find a Celsius energy drink, go to the Celsius store locator on their website, punch in your address, and it'll tell you the closest spot where you can pick one up. Could be a Walmart, Publix, King Collins Stop and Shop, or your bodega.
Bodega.
And after you keep going to your bodega and you know you love Celsius and you want more, you can buy it in bulk over on Amazon with the subscribe and save. Get that variety pack because there's so many great flavors of Celsius. And have it sent to your place of residence whenever you want. Just make sure you're drinking Celsius energy drinks, the official energy drink of PewterReport.com. I want to get back to that defensive conversation and also want to get to the injury report. But we have another super chat, so those always take precedent. Thanks to Q's44, number
Thank you.
44, with this $5 super chat, who says, there is no orange curse. Defeatism is the only cancer of a team. Yeah, there's been a lot of discussion about this with Bucs media, with Bucs fans. Some people say it's a curse, or they just play bad in it. Maybe not necessarily a curse, but something that's just, it brings them down for whatever reason. Other people are just like, well, the Bucs have sucked in those jerseys. Like when they came back, we're not talking about like the early days Bucs where they were a bad team. I kind of lean towards the Bucs just had a bad. Well, here's the thing. I am a vibes guy and a very superstitious guy. So sometimes when you wear something and it's not working, you can't go back to it. But I think it's a little bit different in this situation because it's different players and different teams. So when the Cream School came back, it was like the Josh Freeman days and a lot of different stuff. Those teams were just bad. They were just awful teams or pretty bad teams. Last season, they played a good team with the Detroit Lions. So I think the solution for wearing the Cream School jerseys, because they look so cool and
they do.
It's been a lot of fun being at practice the past couple of days. You see all the flags with the Bucko Bruce. You and I, when we were walking to our cars, we saw the car. Even seeing them wear the Bucko Bruce helmet has been so cool. What you have to do is, if you know you're wearing it once a season, and even Baker advocated for wearing it more than once, but if you know you're going to wear it once a season, I get it. It's any given Sunday. Any team can be beat at any moment. But you kind of know going in which team's going to be good, which team's going to be bad, and then, fluctuates a little bit. Like next season, schedule the Cream School game for whenever they play the Panthers or whoever is going to be on their schedule. That's terrible. Make it as winnable as a game as possible to just get the fans from stop worrying about this Cream School jersey situation.
Yeah, and I mean, like you mentioned it with like the players loving it. Zion McCollum mentioned yesterday that there's just so much nostalgia, and if the players could vote on it, they would probably vote to wear the creamsicles every week. I remember earlier today I asked Tristan Wirfs because they posted his picture like for Cream School Week where he was just sitting down doing a photo, and he's like, man, I love doing that photo shoot. Like these players are huge fans of the jersey, and like when you think of the Cream School uniforms, of course there were the dark days, but also the 1979 team I think still rings home for many Bucs fans. So the orange jerseys, whether people like it or not, they're a part of the team's history, and it's a way to celebrate like the retro style and the teams of yesteryear. I don't think there's an orange curse, Matt, because you kind of mentioned those teams in like 2009, 10, 11. They weren't the best football teams. And I think right now it's a good start for them to kind of get some good juju for that trend. And I think that they win against the Falcons, I think the curse will be broken, but a lot more fans will be receptive of them wearing the jersey.
Especially with the team that's clearly hobbled at wide receiver and has other injuries, and not many people are expecting them to win this game. So I think that's important to factor in as well. Thanks to Aaron for this $4.99 super chat, who says a name no one is talking about to trade is Christian Watson on the final year of a rookie deal and a Tampa native. He's not on the final year of his rookie deal. He was drafted in 2022. So he has
2 more.
Yeah, so he's got 2 more seasons. I'm not exactly sure how much he's been used on the Packers because they've got some other wide receivers. Do you know anything about that, Adam?
Yeah, I know Watson really hasn't been utilized like they thought when they drafted him, just because of the emergence of Romeo Doubs. They have Jaden Reed, who we saw at the Senior Bowl. He's phenomenal.
And
Dontavian Wicks. So as much as Watson's talented, I think he's kind of the odd man out in that Packers picture. But there's a lot to like about him between I think like sub 4.4 speed. He has the height that he would kind of fill in that Mike Evans role for the time being, and then could also slide on the outside too. I think it would be an intriguing buy low candidate, but I don't know if the Packers would be willing to part with him because they have a lot of talent there at wide receiver, and they might want to keep it that way.
It would be cool because he went to Plant High School, and he is a and he is a Tampa local, so it'd be a cool like homecoming story. But teams have depth and need depth for a reason. And
Yeah.
by the way, something we didn't mention, and George just said it here. Liam also mentioned Jarrett. Like Rakim Jarrett likely is going to be activated this week, and that's important too. He really hasn't done a ton in his NFL career, but he's had some moments in training camp. And at this point, you got to exhaust every single option that you have. I also loved this comment from Jamie Barrows, who said, I have to give Bowles credit. After Godwin got hurt, he quickly signed extra punters since one will not be enough on Sundays. A good comment's a good comment, or a funny comment is a funny comment. So, and Louis Flash says, I was there back in 1979, and we loved the cream school uniforms. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the jerseys. They can't go full time because then we'd have to change our name from Pewter Report to Cream School Report, and it doesn't ring as much. I'm not saying they should go. I know, like, they either have 8 home games or 9 home games, depending on the schedule. I'm not saying you should go 4-4, but I wouldn't hate 2 Cream School games, or maybe do 1 road Cream School game.
Ooh,
but the other team would have to be okay with it. Let's get to the injury report, shall we? I'm also gonna change the banner too. Injury report just came out, and I just had it. Shoot. Let's go. Okay. So there was a new addition. We'll get to that in just a moment. We'll save that for last. Payne Durham was limited today, so that's an upgrade for him. He's dealing with that calf injury. He did not practice yesterday. Was limited today. We saw him warming up, and then he kind of just stood on the side. But the fact that he was warming up with everybody was a good step in the right direction. Mike Evans, we know, did not practice. Will Golson, knee, limited again. This is the other big one. Bucky Irving, toe, did not practice for the second day in a row. That is going to be worth monitoring for Friday's practice, which typically indicates whether or not someone is going to play in the game on Sunday. It's weird because he didn't get hurt until towards the end. Some people are saying like after he scored the touchdown, but that's obviously a huge blow considering how much the running backs are going to be relied upon in this game. Rakim Jarrett, knee, fully participated, so it looks like he's going to be activated. Tyke Smith, concussion, did not practice once again. And this was a new addition, and I actually noticed this in the locker room as well. Greg Gaines, calf injury, limited participation, but I saw him in the locker room today, and he was wearing a boot. Yeah. And when I first saw that, I'm like, oh my God, like he's not going to be able to play at all. But now it does kind of seem like this is more of a precautionary boot, like keep him as stable as he possibly can. So that's another one to really pay attention to. And then quickly I'll rattle off the Falcons. Actually, never mind. The Falcons didn't come out yet. So, yeah, there's your Tampa Bay Buccaneers injury report for Thursday. Some good news on Payne Durham, but bad news with Bucky and Greg Gaines getting added to it as well, Adam. Not overly ideal.
Yeah, and Matt, I want to ask you, in the world where Bucky Irving cannot play, like what did the Bucs do? And I know we mentioned earlier in the show with running 21 personnel with Rachaad White and Sean Tucker. If Bucky isn't there, though, do they still go that route, or how do they look to establish the run game? Because Bucky's been dynamic, and it seems like every time he gets the ball to carry, he gets 4 or 5 yards, and he had 3 receptions for 54 yards Monday night, too.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, you just use a little bit more of Sean Tucker and rely a little more on Rachaad White. I mean, Sean Tucker was the NFC Offensive Player of the Week 2 weeks ago, so I don't think it's the worst situation where Sean Tucker gets more opportunities. And I think some people, I'm curious to get your thoughts on this, some people wanted Sean Tucker to get more rushing attempts in that game against the Ravens because Rachaad led the way, but then Sean Tucker, even though he averaged the most, was several behind Rachaad White. How'd you feel about the running back disparagement or disbursement, I should say, from that Monday game?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. And that was something I asked Liam Cohen today, was if he was satisfied with the way that the running backs kind of got touches throughout the game. And Matt, I was surprised that Sean Tucker only had 5 carries because he's coming off a game where he torched the Saints defense. I mean, 14 carries, 136 yards rushing. He had 2 touchdowns. I mean, you have to give him more than 5 attempts. I mean, regardless of Rachaad White and Bucky Irving having success on the ground, I mean, Sean Tucker is coming off a career game, and he averaged 5.8 yards per carry against the Ravens. I mean, you have to give him more touches. And I think going into Sunday against the Falcons, he at least has to get double digits.
I would agree with that. Let's say Bucky Irving isn't playing. I think touches wise, and because Sean Tucker's a solid receiver, Rachaad White is clearly a better receiver at this point. I think each of those guys have to get 15 touches each. And if that means 10 rushes for Rachaad and 5 catches for him, great. Sean Tucker, I would skew it a little more like, 12 rushing attempts, 3 passes or whatever. But the football should be in their hands as much as possible because, that game against the Saints, Sean Tucker was absolutely cruising.
He was a wrecking ball.
The Bucs fan, much like the Bucs fans will be on the Tampa Bay Bucs cruise.
We're on the Bucs cruise. Of course we're playing pool volleyball.
Hey, we on the Bucs cruise, of course. Anytime I say Tampa, they will say Bay. Tampa! Hey! Tampa! Hey! Tampa! Hey!
We're on the Bucs cruise. Of course, I've got my Super Bowl 37 hardware. What do you think?
We're on the Bucs cruise, and of course we had a pirate night. Arr!
Arr!
That's right. The Tampa Bay Bucs cruise coming up March 7th through the 10th. But just a reminder for everybody, you have until December 1st to officially get your cabin for this Tampa Bay Bucs cruise, which is taking place out in Fort Lauderdale, going to Key West, Bimini in the Bahamas, the Celebrity Silhouette Cruise. Several current Bucs are going to be there. Yaya Diaby, Jordan Whitehead, a couple of the receivers, a couple Bucs legends as well. Mike Allstott, Derek Brooks. Fun opportunities. There's going to be game nights, a Raise the Flags sail away, meet and greet opportunities with the players, VIP parties as well. So many fun stuff coming up with this Tampa Bay Buccaneers cruise. Peter Report's going to be on it as well. So after you hang out with the players, you can hang out with us too. We know we're playing second fiddle to the Bucs players. But remember, you have until December 1st to reserve that cabin. Obviously, the holidays are a little bit after that, so it makes for a great holiday gift. You can reserve your cabin, but hurry up because time's running out and the boat is filling up. You can go to TampaBayBucsCruise.com or call 1-800-975-7112. That's TampaBayBucsCruise.com or 800-975-7112. All right, we spent a good amount of time on the Buccaneers offense, but man, I think the biggest question after how you replace Mike and Chris, not 1v1, of course, I don't have a lot of answers for this Bucs defense right now, Adam, because what's working for them is their defensive line. They're getting a fair amount of sacks. I think they even got some good pressure on Lamar Jackson, but Lamar Jackson is elusive and extremely difficult, and he ran out of some sacks that Kirk Cousins won't be able to. But it hasn't mattered. Over 500 yards in 2 of the last 3 games. And, oh, by the way, one of those teams that had over 500 yards were the Falcons that the Bucs are playing again.
Yeah, and Kirk Cousins, he did whatever he wanted to the last time these two teams played. I mean, 42 of 58, 509 passing yards, and then the 4 touchdowns. I mean, he was finding Drake London, Darnell Mooney. Heck, he even got Kyle Pitts involved. And I think for the Bucs defense, they really, like we talk about Baker Mayfield getting back to the fundamentals. I think the defense needs to get back to the fundamentals, and they really just need to understand. Like, I know a theme has been communication. Yaya Diaby and Zion McCollum kind of mentioned yesterday. I mean, how much can you communicate though? I mean, it comes down to execution. These guys really need to get on the same page. Like one blown assignment has been their detriment, giving up these big chunk plays. It's like some guys are playing on specific plays and some guys are kind of taking off and they're kind of loafing. And you can't have that, especially with a guy like Kirk Cousins, who he's been in the league a long time. He knows how to pick apart a defense. He can read a soft zone coverage. He could drop it in the middle, drop it on the sideline. And Matt, I don't know. This year, the Bucs defense is 28th in scoring, and they're 31st in total defense. There hasn't been an answer. They've let guys like Bo Nix get comfortable and look like a veteran quarterback. I don't know what the answer is, and frankly, I don't know how they stop them.
And the problem too is if they get behind, like one thing the Bucs I think have done pretty well this year, and you kind of see in this picture, is forcing fumbles, but that's tougher to do when you're playing from behind, and it makes it more difficult to get interceptions in that situation. And I know they had a big turnover game against the Saints, but let's remember the Saints lost Chris Olave very early in that game. Rashid Shaheed ended up missing that game, and now he's done for the year. And Spencer Rattler was playing quarterback. The Bucs have been able to, and they did a good job against Bijan Robinson in that last game too. Now, against Baltimore, Derrick Henry is a different animal. And it's so crazy because they still did a terrible job stopping the run. But up until Derrick Henry had that gigantic 81-yard run or whatever it was, they were doing a solid job. But once the wheels came off, it just completely came off. Now, luckily, they're not going up against Derrick Henry, and they won't have to again this season unless they meet in the Super Bowl. And at that point, we'll be having a very different conversation about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers team if they make it to the Super Bowl. So even though I don't think Bijan Robinson necessarily is going to kill them, the Bucs have found a way to reignite some pedestrian play from guys that have been more hype than production. But they've turned Drake London into Randy Moss. Like Drake and just eviscerates the Bucs now. He does it typically in Atlanta, so this might be a little bit different with the game being in Tampa. And Kyle Pitts, I don't know, maybe being around his old buddy Kyle Trask, getting the Kyle connection going once again. But man, like Kyle Pitts turned into Tony Gonzalez or whatever in that first game. And you saw it with the Ravens game as well. When they hit Mark Andrews a bunch of times, when they hit Likely a fair amount, the Bucs just cannot guard the middle of the field. And KJ Britt is a huge problem. And I think also it's a mistake that they don't take him out and put in JJ Russell. And we'll see if they trade for a linebacker. That's not very easy to do. Now they can't go to the nickel package, or sorry, the dime package where you have a nickel corner on the field because you don't have Tyke Smith for this game. You know, it is fundamentals, it is communication, but I'm sick and tired of hearing about all of that.
Right.
We've heard it time and time again, and it just has not made a difference one way or another. Todd Bowles should be embarrassed right now. And the defensive players should be embarrassed too, because it is on them. You know, Bowles needs to call some better things. I don't know if you go to more man-to-man, and I know it burned Zion McCollum on that last play of the game. But, like, you can't bank on the Bucs offense helping you out in this game. You just can't.
Yeah.
This is going to have to be a game where the defense makes a play, whether that's just a lot of third down stops, whether that's a big turnover in their own territory where, you know, it's a quick score for them. But man, the only thing I'm confident about in this game is the over because I think they're going to pick apart the Bucs defense.
Yeah. And Matt, like when you look at it, the Bucs have, by comparison, so the 28th scoring defense, but the 4th scoring offense. Let's say the scoring offense was maybe in the middle of the pack, or if it was more like last year, what would the Bucs record be? Because the offense has really put the team on its back in the first half of the season. Now you can't rely on that. And now it's up to Todd Bowles. You mentioned like communication and fundamentals. This is an NFL defense. These are things that should have been implemented in training camp. You should see throughout the season that guys are on their assignments, they're on the same page, and they're executing. And some of that can go back to, hey, early on in the season, the defensive line was injured. Then the secondary got decimated. All these different positions, all the guys really haven't been on the field much together, but the guys that are really need to get out there and they need to get after it. And when you look at the defense now, they do have more pressure on them. And some of the guys were like, we go out there the same way every game, but they can't rely on the offense to score as many points as they have been. So they need to get more takeaways. They need those game-defining sacks on third down. And I don't know if the answer is man-to-man, because as you mentioned, like Zion got burnt. But Zion, he's been one of the top corners in the NFL.
Yeah.
So I think at some point you have to rely on him. And Todd Bowles, his calling card is dialing up blitzes. I think that's what you have to do. Otherwise, you're just giving Kirk enough time to pick apart his own defense.
The problem with the blitzes, and they still should blitz, but the problem is everybody knows the blitzes are coming, so it's not intimidating anymore. And you may not know where it's coming from, but when you only have to throw the ball 4 yards down the field, the blitzes get negated and neutralized. I mean,
yep.
Even again, like they only had 2 sacks against the Ravens, but I would still say they generated a good amount of pressure. But even before the Ravens game, it was, hey, the Bucs had 15 sacks in their last 3 games. Now it's 17 sacks in their last 4 games. Still a really good number.
Definitely.
Yaya Diaby had a sack. Vita Vea has been fantastic in terms of generating pressure. That has not mattered in the slightest. Because of how bad the coverage has been. And that's the scariest thing of it all, is like the defensive line and the edge rushers, the D-line has figured it out. They've been doing a really good job, besides, the last game stopping the run. But I look at that as more of a credit to the Ravens than the Bucs just really struggling in stopping the run. And I expect them to bounce back this week. But how do you expect Yaya Diaby to get after the quarterback? How do you expect Kalijah Kancey to show off his true skill set and a huge reason why the Buccaneers drafted him when the quarterback just has to wait 2 seconds and get rid of the football? It is killing this team.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said, Matt.
One other comment I want to get to, Timothy Fitzgerald said, if JJ Russell doesn't get some snaps, why is he even on the damn team? And that's another problem with the Bucs is Todd Bowles is too loyal. I understand giving your guys opportunities, giving them the benefit of the doubt, but this is as bad as the defense has looked since he's been a head coach, since he's been a defensive play caller here. It has never been this bad. And if they don't change it soon, they're going to be out of the division race. They're going to be out of the playoff race, and it may cost Todd Bowles his job. Not going to 100% say that, but you have to make some type of change, some type of adjustment. Maybe it's blitzing in a different way. Maybe it's not blitzing as much. Maybe it's playing man-to-man so they can hold on to the ball a little bit more. But if nothing has changed or corrected, you can't just keep saying communication, because then you have to say, well, these guys can't communicate, and someone else has to.
Yeah. And Timothy, you make a great point when it comes to JJ Russell. At some point, they have to admit that KJ Britt is just not cut out to be an every down linebacker. And you look at JJ Russell, he's balled out in the preseason in the past. When he's on the field, he's making sacks, forced fumbles. He got in one game last year when both Devin and Levante were out, and he had 7 tackles and a sack, and he graded out pretty respectively on PFF. I mean, he's not a bad football player, and you at least have to try him. I mean, KJ Britt's the worst graded linebacker by PFF this season.
Was it 82? 82 out of 82?
83 out of 83.
Oh, excuse me, 83.
He just keeps going down. And I mean, it's not just that grade, right? You could take that with a grain of salt. You look at the game, though, and you watch what's going on. I mean, he's just a liability at this point. So, Timothy, I think you make a great point. I think get JJ out there, at least try him 5-10 snaps. It can't be that bad.
Exactly. Right. They don't have to play him the whole game. Just platoon him. Because there is value to KJ Britt, but it's certainly not stopping the pass. And, there's a reason why they pay these guys. And I hope these guys are using their money the right way. And if they need money people, I would say use Immuni Financial.
At A-Muni Financial, we help you live in the now.
Congratulations. We're so happy for you.
Thank you.
And even though the now may feel very different, you still need to plan for the future.
How's retirement treating you? Oh, just fantastic.
I know I say it all the time, but you really got to come up to Colorado.
Let's do it. All right.
Yeah.
We can help you develop that plan to keep you on track, so you can still prepare for tomorrow, today. A-Muni Financial. Plan ahead, stay ahead.
That's right. Muni Financial has proudly been serving clients across the country since 1980. They can help you with a number of different things like legacy and retirement planning, insurance services, annuities, and sales and trading. If your kid wants to go to college, they can help set up a college account as well. And you heard them mention Colorado. Yes, they have their office in Colorado. They have offices in Tampa. They have it all across the United States as well. So if you want to go to, I don't know, Rhode Island or Washington or Idaho, whatever it may be, Immuni Financial has a place for you. So check out Immuni Financial, get a free consultation, and have them help you. And since we're on the topic of money, if you want to win a little money, of course, there's no better place to bet at than with BetUS. You can get up to 125% of a bonus on your first 3 deposits. So a lot of other outlets, it's just on 1 deposit. You get it up to 3 deposits, and you also get 10% of Gamblers Insurance. They have great prop bets. They're awesome with the live betting as well. There's a Thursday night game going on. I believe it's Rams-Vikings, so that should be a pretty entertaining game, especially with the Rams getting their receivers back. You can bet on that game. A huge UFC fight this weekend. So tons of great things to bet on, and you can sign up and get that huge bonus with BetUS using the promo code PEWTER. That's PEWTER. They also have fantastic payouts, and they are great with their one-on-one customer service. So check out BetUS. Use the promo code PEWTER. That's PEWTER. Let's get to a couple of super chats, shall we? Thank you all for your contributions, starting with Trey Alderson Cloutier with a $1.99 super chat. Thank you. Says Rashad for slot receiver, Moore, Bucky, and Tucker. I'm open to a little more of Rashad lining up outside at wide receiver, but not for like the whole game. And then the availability of Bucky Irving changes a good amount of this dynamic.
Yeah, and I think there should be plays where it isn't just 2 running backs on the field. I think 3 running backs on the field could really throw a defense off. And so having Rashad out there maybe out wide, but not relying on it extensively.
I would love to see how a 3 running back situation works. Like, do they go like old school? Do they run the triple? What if they run the triple option? I mean, Baker likes to get physical. I wouldn't, again, not the whole game, but like 1 goal line situation, maybe not at the 1 yard line, but say they're at the 5. I'm not ruling out the triple option.
Yeah, and then Baker just throwing a block. Like, I'm here for it.
But staying healthy. But
yes.
Thank you to Marcos for the $1.99 super chat, who says, put in JJ for F's sake. I mean, I don't know what else we need to see. And who knows? Maybe KJ Britt ends up with an interception and he shuts all of us up. And I like KJ Britt. I love the leadership he brings.
Definitely.
I don't really want to keep knocking this guy. But every single time there's a play, KJ Britt is like the first guy onto the scene because he's 2 seconds away every single time. Miscommunication. Todd Bowles isn't going to throw under the bus. Who is miscommunicating? But something has to change. Something has to change. And I just don't know exactly what, except for maybe putting in J.J. Russell.
Yeah. And again, don't want to knock KJ Britt fully. I mean, he does provide some value, and he did play well down the stretch last year. But I think Todd Bowles just has to realize he isn't cut out for the role that he has now, and that they need to address it before it's too late.
Bat W says, I still think a 12-5 record is very possible. I respect the hell out of that. Out of that. I know, who was it? I think it was Paul Bowens kept saying the Bucs are going to go 13-4. And again, I respect his ambition about that. I also really appreciate, and we also really appreciate, all of the Pewter Platinum members that are members on Pewter Report's YouTube channel. So thanks to Scott Federico, Rathel Gordon, Noah Parr, Scotty J, and Dave Anderson. We appreciate all of your support so much. We couldn't do it without you. We will have a Pewter Insider tomorrow at 1:30 for Pewter Premier and Platinum members. So we'll talk more Bucs Falcons, and of course we'll answer anything that you want to talk about, because it's your show. That's why it's the Pewter Insider. We also got the Pewter pregame show coming up at 9 o'clock this upcoming Sunday. Myself and Scott Reynolds. You can find that on our YouTube channel. The Pewter Game Day show is coming up after that at 1 o'clock. Live reactions, analysis, everything as we are watching the Bucs game. We'll have a couple of WDAE guests as well. So, Adam, looking at this game, what do you want to see in order for the Bucs to be successful?
Yeah, I think when you look at the Bucs offensively, I think really establishing the run, kind of making that the precedent, obviously, but also Baker Mayfield not forcing things. On Monday night, he was kind of forcing passes, or he really shouldn't have. Or if there was a check down available, I think just being smart with the football, understanding, hey, I don't have a 6'5" Mike Evans. I don't have Chris Godwin creating that separation. Rely on the guys that you do have. Rely on the talent that you possess. And then defensively, I think just changing something. Putting J.J. Russell out there, giving him
can't be worse.
It can't get worse. Anyway, you try to cut it up. Play more man coverage. Force Kirk Cousins to make tight window throws, because last time he was making wide open throws. They have to try to change something, dial up more pressure. But Bijan Robinson, kind of the X factor here, because last time he only had 12 carries, averaged over 5 yards a carry. After the big game to Derrick Henry, I mean, Bijan, he's a very talented, elusive back, and he very well could have a big game. So looking at him, stopping him as well, I think will be paramount.
And you have to remember the Bucs have a little bit of more time to prepare for the Falcons this time around. They'll have Kalijah Cansey, who they didn't have last time. They'll have Antoine Winfield Jr. they didn't have last time. And I think one of those receivers are going to end up stepping up for the Buccaneers. Not a 10-catch, 165-yard game and 2 touchdowns, but enough to be a focal point of the offense where the Falcons have to prepare for them, and not just sell out for the run. And I think that's the biggest thing, because this run game will have success as long as the Falcons can't put 9 or 10 guys in the box.
Yeah.
If you want to watch the Bucs game and you're not going to it, I cannot recommend enough going to walk-ons for the game.
Yeah, so what happened out there tonight?
We struck out at home with leftovers, then we remembered walk-ons.
What effect did the situation have?
Spirit soared. Nick took on a burger. Jen obliterated her ribeye po' boy. And speaking of spirits, Laura even scored a real tasty cocktail. She needed that.
Any lessons learned today?
Yeah. Head straight to walk-ons.
Scratch-made dishes, wall-to-wall TVs, craft beers, and cocktails. Walk-ons for the win.
Gotta go to walk-ons. Their happy hours are incredible. Today, you can even go from, it's 5 o'clock now, but you still have an hour from 3 to 6, or you can go from 9 until close. They have it all day on Tuesdays. Tons of great deals with their drinks and some of their appetizers as well. And game day specials, they have pints of $4.49 on Saturdays and Sundays, and 22 ounce for $5.99. So check out Walk-Ons, great food and drinks. There's 3 in the Tampa area, 1 in Wesley Chapel, another one in Midtown near me. I'll actually be going there tonight for dinner. So if you happen to be around Midtown and want to go to Walk-Ons, we can go and chat and say what up and maybe watch some Thursday Night Football. So I'll be there for dinner tonight. That's just a little shout out. Very much looking forward to it. I think I'm going to end up getting some wings. So shout out to our friends over at Walk-Ons. It's been a great show today. Appreciate everybody's participation in it all. We got the game day show and the pregame show coming up. Pregame, then game day on Sunday. And that'll do it for us. So for Adam Slavon, I'm Matt
There's
Matera
a late
saying
super
thanks everybody
chat
for watching. What's up? Oh, we got a late super chat.
Yeah.
Okay,
last
we ain't
second.
ending the show then. Shout out to Ryan Giles. Thank you for the buzzer beater super chat. Who says, and thanks for the $4.99 super chat, I should say. Any chance we could have traded our pirate ship to the Raiders for Crosby? It does make sense. I'm just trying to think. If they could just build another pirate ship after, then fine. Problem is, you got to think long term. Like, yes, Max Crosby's an elite pass rusher, but he's only going to be in the league for, the next decade. That pirate ship's going to be there for centuries and centuries. So if there's a way to get another pirate ship, then yeah, absolutely. But the pirate ship's that's the staple of Raymond James Stadium. So
that is iconic. And but the Bucs could pull a Statue of the Liberty if they're willing to transport it to Las Vegas and pay the cost. I mean, something to consider.
Right. Yeah. Curious how Jason Light would answer that. But Max, it's interesting because take out the pirate ship. Say they keep the pirate ship. Everyone's saying, oh, he's going to get traded. He's going to get traded and all this stuff. I don't know if he actually will, but man, if they could find a way to get Max Crosby, I think I would do it anyway. And I would just build a new pirate ship and then put it in the other end zone. Be like, hey, it's new pirate ship, new end zone. So different feel to it.
Yeah. But looking at Max Crosby, I mean, it's unrealistic just the way Jason values his picks. But man, it would be fun. And edge rusher is still a big need. And Max Crosby, you talk about, I know you and Scott, Jason Pierre-Paul and Ndamukong Suh, kind of that guy who's a little bit of a jerk. Max Crosby's a really nice guy. He has a couple pit bulls, but he is that dog too. I mean, he is that guy.
Him and Yaya would be absolutely incredible. But I love the pirate ship. I hope the pirate ship stays in the place that they got it. Bri with a great comment says, we'll just have Disney build them another on our dime. Man, you fans would be so upset though. Yeah, maybe just reboot the Pirates of the Caribbean or make a new one and have Disney build it right at Raymond James Stadium. Then you still get Max Crosby. So that'd be very cool. But that'd be great. You all are great, and we appreciate everybody for watching. So for Adam Slavon, I'm Matt Matera saying thanks everybody, and we'll see you this Sunday for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Happy Cream School Week. Out.